Welcome to the SNN.Network Canada virtual event. I'd like to introduce our next presenter, Ashish Malik, CEO of BVT Technologies. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Matthew. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone. Really excited to be part of this great event, and thanks to the organizers for organizing everything. So BVT Technologies is an AGTECH company, and we're developing a disruptive tool that helps farmers be more productive, allows them to grow their crops in a better way, increase yields, and they do this in an all-natural way. They do this by using biologicals. These are products that are derived from a natural source that have a positive and beneficial impact to crops. These products are now being used as substitutes to pesticides, to chemical pesticides, as well as to chemical fertilizers. So it's kind of the next wave of innovation that's going into agricultural inputs. It's an all-natural suite of products. So we've got biological products that are part of our portfolio. And then the other interesting element of our company is that we are delivering these products to the crops using an all-natural system. So whereas the traditional way to apply any kind of a plant protection product, whether it's a biological or a chemical, is to use heavy machinery, right? So farmers today will use heavy spray equipment, tractor sprayers, maybe even, airplanes, crop dusters to get the products onto the crop, which, uses a lot of water because the products get, mixed into a solution of water before they get sprayed. Of course, they use, fossil fuels to operate these machines. So it has a very big impact on the environment. What we've been able to do is innovate and come up with an all-natural system to deliver these biological products to crops. And we actually use managed beehives to do that. So this combination of a biological product delivered in an all-natural way is what makes BVT very unique in the AgTech space. We've been able to demonstrate that the combination of these two technologies creates what we call a natural precision agricultural tool, which has a much reduced impact on the environment, less use of chemicals, no use of water for the delivery, no reliance on fossil fuels. But what's super exciting is that we're also improving the economics for the farmer. We are producing higher yields for the farmer. We are producing more profit for them. We've got, growers that are telling us they're getting 20 times return on investment, and really validates that this is a technology that does a better job of producing a better crop, as well as reducing the environmental impact on the environment. We have taken this technology and now are fully commercial and have built a company that has very strong fundamentals. So if you think about what you might want to look for in a tech or life sciences investment, you look for some of the criteria that you see on this slide. You want to look for a company that's got a very strong intellectual property portfolio, and very specifically, we built a company with over 65 patents on a worldwide basis. About 35 patents are in patent pending and review stage. We have a very strong ESG story. In fact, we are fundamentally an ESG company. We have a triple bottom line impact. We have a solution that's good for people, for the planet, and for profitability for the farmers. The technology has been validated. This is no longer an idea. We have progressed this to be a company that has deployed technology. We have regulatory approval. We have, like I said, certainly the proven trials. We've demonstrated through about 55 trials in North America and across Europe that the system works. And we're getting endorsements from key universities across North America that the technology is actually working. We've got great commercial traction, and we'll talk more about that. But we have been commercial since early 2020 and are seeing tremendous growth rate, high customer retentions as well. And the team is a high-quality team with over 100 years of experience in the global agricultural markets, and is very well connected with the major industry players. Our strategy is quite straightforward. We are using the United States as our prove-it market. So it is where we're getting to revenue first, or we have got to revenue first already. So commercialization in the U.S. is the first element of our strategy. But then what we are doing now that we are commercial in the U.S. is taking what we've learned in the U.S. and the know-how that we've built and applying it in other jurisdictions around the world. So geographic expansion is the second element of our strategy. And then finally, the third element of our strategy is to expand the product portfolio. And we'll talk more about this as the slides go on. But, really what we're talking about here is leveraging the IP that we have and bringing more products into the mix so that we can tack on additional revenue opportunities. Okay, so switching to kind of an update of how the technology works and what is the value proposition of BVT. This slide shows basically how the system is put together. So on the right-hand side, what you see is the biological crop control agent that we have. We have our own proprietary strain of a beneficial fungus that we've isolated in the soils in Ontario, Canada. We call it CR7. And this is the product that has the beneficial properties when it's associated with the crop, with the plant. It helps the plant grow stronger. It provides, plant stimulation, growth stimulation. But most importantly, it helps the plant fight diseases. So it is considered a biological fungicide. So it actually outcompetes different diseases and helps the plant therefore fight off these pathogens that would otherwise reduce the yields. On the left-hand side, you see two pictures of our bee dispenser systems. We have systems that are developed for commercial bumblebee hives as well as for commercial honeybee hives. So the reason it's important to have two different dispensers is because certain crops, the farmer prefers using one insect to pollinate their crops versus the other. The way the system works in either the honeybee system or the bumblebee system is kind of similar. We have our biological control agent that is formulated in a special powder that is designed to adhere to the bodies of the bees, and this powder is placed at the exits of the beehives, again, either honeybees or bumblebees. And the idea here is you have foraging bees whose role for the colony is to go look for food. And to do that, they leave the beehive and they go to the flower. Well, when they're leaving the beehive, in our case, they walk across dispensers that contain that specially formulated powder. They pick the microbial product up on their bodies and they fly with it as they reach the flower. Once they reach the flower, they do their foraging, looking for the pollen and nectar that they need for nutritional purposes of their hive. And through that process, the microbial product, RCR7, falls off their bodies, colonizes the plant tissue, gives the farmer the properties that they need and they're looking for and paying for. The bees, in the meantime, return to their hive with the pollen, and the whole cycle repeats itself during the bloom period for the crop. So in a sense, you're getting continuous delivery of the biological inoculum, the beneficial fungus, during the bloom time. And that's actually much more efficient than a traditional spray technology. So what you see on this slide is, on the right, the traditional way that a strawberry grower would protect their crop against a disease called gray mold or botrytis. And what they do typically is spray every 6th or 7th day a chemical fungicide. And over the course of a 2.5-month season, they're going to spray something like 4 kilograms of a chemical active ingredient to try to fight off this botrytis disease. On the left, we've demonstrated that by using beehives and using 2 hives equipped with BVT dispensers per acre of land, and through the continuous delivery of micro quantities of our CR7, we get equivalent control of botrytis through the delivery of only 20 grams of our microbial product over the course of that same 2.5-month season. So you're comparing 20 grams of an active ingredient versus 4 kilograms of an active ingredient. And oh, by the way, we're talking about a biological product and not a synthetic small molecule chemical. So this really shows the power of our technology in terms of targeted delivery of biological crop controls. So where are we with commercializing this technology? We have taken this technology and are entering our third year of revenue in the U.S. The revenue journey started in late 2019, so 2020 was our first season. And the big milestone that was achieved late 2019 was getting EPA approval for our CR7 as a biological fungicide for delivery using bees. This was a significant first. It was the first product registration for BVT, but significantly, it was also the first product ever registered by the EPA for delivery using bees. So it's kind of, blazed a new trail so that when we come with the next product, we've already got a path to get that second and third and fourth product registered. We also, earlier in 2021, got the California registration. California has a separate regulatory approval process than the US EPA, and we completed that step in early 2021. The market opportunity is very large. On slide 13, you can see the crops that we have identified as opportunities for our technology. We started in the berry crops, and that's where we're focusing right now, mostly in blueberries, but we're also doing development work in tree nuts. Now that we have registration in California, this season we'll be able to do some more work in almonds, which is a tremendous opportunity. There's over 1 million acres of almonds that are planted, almond orchards in the Central Valley in California, and there's a $350 million pollination services industry already, where bees are being used to pollinate those 1 million acres of almonds. Beyond the tree nuts, we're doing work in oil seeds and sunflowers. We will be doing work in tree fruits, crops like cherries and prunes, where bees are again being used, even apples. And then obviously we have a tremendous opportunity in greenhouse vegetable production. Maybe not the biggest market in the United States, but when you think about expansion into Mexico or even Canada or certainly Europe, greenhouse production of vegetables is a tremendous opportunity. So our first year of revenue was 2020, and our launch market was the blueberry market in Georgia. As we look at 2021, we saw tremendous growth in the season that's basically just completed. We saw that, we retained 100% of our customer base in Georgia. So we did business with 11 customers in 2020 in Georgia. We retained all of them in 2021, and in fact expanded and more than doubled the customer base in Georgia. I think there was a total of 24 customers in Georgia that used our system this last season. Overall, we have over 1,000 acres that were under BVT management, over 40 growers in 2021, and we posted close to 50% growth on an invoiced basis. We invoiced in US dollars, so we report in Canadian dollars, so there were some currency changes, but on a constant exchange rate, we had 47% growth year on year. We opened 6 new markets, and we'll talk about how we view agricultural markets in a minute here. And in 2021, we also significantly opened up the opportunity in California. Sales adoption is about a 2 to 3 year journey with a grower, typically, for a new technology. And I've got 20 years of experience in this industry, and I've worked at the 2 biggest global multinationals in the space, Bayer and Syngenta. And this is very typical. Whenever a new product is introduced, a farmer will always take 2 to 3 years before they increase their adoption of that product across their operation. So this is the journey that is a very typical journey for a grower. This particular case study is with a blueberry grower in Georgia, where in 2018, we just gave some product for them to kind of kick the tires for free. In 2019, they started measuring how the product was doing compared to their current practices. They saw 28% higher yields. That convinced them, so that in 2020 they bought for 100% of their operation. They are gone on record to say it was the best year ever from a fruit set perspective. And by that, what we mean, how many of the flowers actually produce berries. That's the fruit set metric. And then finally, even in 2021, they were using it on 100% of their operation and are saying that they're getting over a 20 times return on investment. So this is the adoption cycle that's typical that we want to be able to replicate as we take our product into the new markets. So speaking of markets, our launch market was the Southeast market in primarily blueberries. It is important to note that even though blueberries are grown in several regions in the U.S., each market is different. The soil conditions are different, the climatic conditions are different, the varieties of the crop are different. So you really have to prove that you can work in each region before you open up that market. So in 2020, in our launch year, it was a limited launch in 2 markets. But by 2021, we were able to open up 6 new markets. So in addition to growing the customer base in Georgia, we got our first revenues in New Jersey, in Michigan, in the Pacific Northwest. We also got a little bit of business in sunflowers in the Midwest. And I'm really now playing in 8 markets across the U.S. And as we progress a couple years from now, what our target is to be playing and being a provider of agricultural inputs in over 12 markets, crop geography combinations across the U.S. So you'll see that in a few years we'll be in tree fruits, in tree nuts, in further in oil seeds, in vegetables as well. So that's the progression that we are executing on. Okay, so the first element of our strategy, as I mentioned, was commercialization in the U.S., and that's what we've just talked about. And by the way, I should add that we are started the sales cycle for the 2022 season. So we're focusing initially in the Southeast. That's the first market where we will be placed, our product will be placed. It's going very well. We're seeing, again, high retention, 70-80% retention. There are some growers that simply had to, fold their operations. They've gone out of business, just got, unfortunately victims of the COVID-19 environment that we're all dealing with. But we will still have very high retention, 75-80%, I expect, in the Southeast. And certainly the early indications are for additional growth in the Pacific Northwest, Michigan, as well as in New Jersey, and the first real commercial activities in California. So U.S. is well underway. I mentioned that the second element of our strategy is expansion, geographic expansion. This is very much a partner-driven model. When we think about geographic expansion, what we have are certain jurisdictions around the world where we are investing in our own project to drive to commercialization and revenue in these jurisdictions. So for example, we already have the regulatory process started in Switzerland. We know we're in the review stage with the Swiss authorities, and we are hopeful. It's very hard to predict regulatory approvals, unfortunately, but we are hopeful that we will get a positive outcome in time for revenue for the 2022 season. In the next 6 to 8 months, within those 6 to 8 months, we will be submitting for approval in Canada, in Mexico, and the European Union. we've also started our project down in Peru, which is a big blueberry crop market as well for us. In addition to the jurisdictions where we're making the investments, there are other geographies where partners have come to us and they've said, you know, BVT, we love what you're doing. We use bees in our countries, and we'd like to bring your technology to market in our countries. And you know, what's exciting here is that these partners are making the investment. So we are sitting back. We're certainly supporting them, you know, providing them some product for free so they can do trials. But beyond that, they're the ones that are doing the trial work and ultimately will steer the regulatory approval process in those countries. And there's tremendous opportunities here because in all of these countries, they grow the crops that we know we work in, and they're export-oriented countries. And a lot of the crops that they grow in Morocco and Turkey in particular are exported into Europe, which is a very chemophobic market, and they're looking for more sustainably grown crops. The second way we're expanding our business is through portfolio expansion. So even here, we've got a lot of, we had a lot of traction in 2021, and we're stepping up the process as we go into 2022 as well. One of the things that we announced in October of this year was getting product access to a third-party product that we could stack together with our own CR7 for Europe. And what's significant here is what that allows us is to increase the value proposition of our system in the eyes of the grower. So our CR7 might help the grower manage botrytis and a certain class of disease. But with the addition of this in-licensed product, we can now also control insects. And we're working with other industry partners to validate their products for delivery through our systems. So with that, we'll be able to control more diseases. So this deal that we announced in Europe actually represents the first commercial partnership for BVT. It is our first path to revenue in the European Union, and it is the first of several product portfolio expansions that we expect to be able to announce in the months to come, in the years to come. In addition to getting more products that could be delivered using our bees, we're also taking our CR7 and developing new uses for that particular microbe. So for example, our product is a very good product for use as a seed treatment on soybeans. And we're getting some good results to show that we can expand into that market. And that's a totally different ballgame, right? We're talking about close to 150 million acres of soybeans that are grown just in 3 countries, the United States, Brazil, and Argentina. So a tremendous opportunity where we're going to be developing some partnerships on. We're also developing CR7 for a foliar application. That's going to open up the opportunity beyond just flowering time for our biofungicide. Okay, in closing, I'd like to make a few comments about the investment opportunity. We are executing our strategy. Certainly, we're replicating the success that we have in the U.S. through our geographic expansion, and we're leveraging the assets that we have, whether it's the bee vectoring side or our own beneficial microbe CR7 through product portfolio expansions. We've advanced this company to a point where we are in commercialization. We have de-risked the technology. We've got the IP secured. We've got the regulatory approval process. So this is a lot about replication and getting into new jurisdictions. And as we go to the third stage is where we're going to be, you know, a global player with multiple products. So the third stage will be the expansion stage. We have several catalysts on our journey to be a global player already identified. So while we keep increasing revenue, we also have specific milestones that we've identified that we believe will be value creation catalysts, just like the ones were where we announced our first approval or our initial sales of the California approval were in the past. The team is very well experienced. I myself have worked at Syngenta and Bayer, like I've mentioned. I was a member of the executive team at a company called AgriQuest, which was a venture capital, a VC-backed private company, which was acquired by Bayer Crop Science. So know what it takes for a successful exit. The rest of the people on the team have, commercialized billion-dollar products with the likes of Syngenta. It's a very well experienced and connected team. Biologicals is a very active area for industry licensing and partnerships and even M&A. The first one, Bayer buying AgriQuest, that's one that I personally was involved with. We were acquired for $425 million when we had about $17 million of sales. So that shows that high multiples are very possible. But it also shows that there's a lot of, this slide shows that there's a lot of activity. The other big ag companies, not only Bayer, but you see BASF on there, Syngenta on there, DuPont, which is now Corteva, Valens, which is Sumitomo Chemicals, Japanese player. The Chinese companies also very active in the biological space today. So with that, I'd like to summarize. We're really excited about where BVT is as we go into 2022. We are a leader in the future of agriculture. We have a very large multi-billion-dollar opportunity in front of us. We have a patented and scalable technology platform. So we're not a one-product company. We actually have a platform that we can expand from. And then significantly, we are now in our full launch mode. That'll take 2-3 years, but we are in that phase of our evolution, if you will, and have started, in addition, the market expansion activities. So with that, I would thank you for your time, and maybe we can have a Q&A session now.
Thank you, Ashish. Our first question asks, what is your vision for the company over the next 12 months, and what type of catalyst should investors be looking for?
It's obviously continued revenue growth, and the way we measure revenue, it's not the absolute number, it's more the quality of sales. So what I'm looking for specifically is, again, high customer retention, because we want to make sure that the growers have a positive experience in 1 year so that they come back the next year, because they also end up being our spokespeople within the communities. So if grower X has a positive experience, then grower Y is more likely to try to use our system. So high retention is important. How many markets are we playing in? So today we're in, as I mentioned, 8 markets, but we want to be able to add new markets because they represent growth opportunities for us in the future. So that's clearly, and we're looking for, again, 50%, if not greater, revenue growth in the 2022 season. In addition to that, we do have the one industry partnership that we announced, but we're looking to have 1 or 2 more, where it could either be another in-licensed product, or it could be a partnership in one of those market expansion areas like foliar or maybe even seed treatment. So that's what we're executing on for the next 12 months.
Great, thank you. I'll ask one last question as we are pushing up against time here, but what is the biggest challenge you face as a company?
Yeah, so the agriculture markets are for people and companies that have got strong willpower and staying power, and we've been in it now for 9 years. And the reason I say that is because we are somewhat dependent on what happens from a climate and environmental perspective. In some cases, in our cases, also from a regulatory perspective. So what I mean is, we are developing a fungicidal solution, right? And we want to be able to position it to control different diseases. Well, I can give you a first-hand example of what happened in California in the Central Valley this year. There was no moisture. There was no disease that developed. So when you're trying to evaluate and validate a disease control solution, but there's no disease that developed, what that means is we didn't get very good, we didn't get a complete data set for our almond opportunity, which is the biggest opportunity for us long term, right? So this is what happens some years, that you've got situations where you don't make progress because you didn't get the data that you need to be able to make that progress. So staying power is important, but what you then do is repeat it next year. And over time, what we want to do is build a portfolio of markets so they kind of hedge, right? So you may have no disease in California, but you've got high disease in the Southeast. So even though you miss here, you've got a greater opportunity than you thought and you budgeted for in the Southeast. So that's how we want to be able to kind of hedge our business as we move forward. But those are some of the challenges in the short term. Sometimes the time doesn't quite work the way we would like it to work.
Excellent. Thank you. That's all the time we have for today. So on that note, I will leave it to you to close up, and please disconnect your line when you're done.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for following. Thanks for listening and your questions. Please do follow us. You can follow us on our website is www.BEVVF.com. You can also follow us on the traditional solar channels, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. Thank you. Right. Bye-bye.